Perspectives of Jeff Aresty of the internetbar.org on the conflict in Ukraine, part of the series Titans of Mediation with seasoned mediator trainer Dr. Barbara Manuso. That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hey everyone, this is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, and arbitrator working throughout Florida and Texas.
And Natalia Łowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland.
And I'm Dr. Barbara Manuso from Newport, Rhode Island, and Houston, Texas. And I am deeply honored today to have as our guest on Manuso Musing, Jeff Aresty. And Jeff is an attorney, and he also lived nearby from Massachusetts, but now he's down in Texas. But his strength and his contribution as a change maker is that he's the founder and the CEO of the Internet Bar organization. And the Internet Bar has many facets to it. So I applaud him today being with us so that he can talk and tell us about the different facets of it and how he has brought his projects and their collective to the conflict in Ukraine, which of course is a heartfelt sadness that we've all been watching on television. But he got on a plane and went there to be in the center of the action to help bring the tools and the information that he has as a mediator and as a peacemaker. So, Jeff, I'm delighted that you're one of our titans of mediation. And tell us what is bringing you to Ukraine. I mean, we're all happy that you're there, but you have some very specific tools and programs nurtured. Tell us about that, please.
Thank you, Barbara and Natalia and Mac. It's really great being here. I'm in Warsaw, Poland, and I've been working with Polish attorneys, Ukrainian attorneys. I have been here now for 2 weeks and am planning to be here another 2 weeks. The work that we've done in Internet Bar for the last 17 years has really led to this point. We've always looked at technology as a vehicle for how you can use technology to really increase access to justice. And so we've worked with youth in many of our places. We've been to Haiti, we've been to Kenya, we're currently in Zambia and Cameroon. And then the conflict in Ukraine just was something that was attacking really liberal democracies all over the world. And it was something that just was really unexpected by so many people, and yet here we are. There are close to 12 million Ukrainians out of a country that has 44 million, I believe that's the number, who are displaced. Several million have just left the country at this point, mostly women and children, and they are dispersed, several million here in Poland. The Polish people have been taking in families just on their own, and the laws have had to change, but lawmaking is very slow. And when you have a conflict that's literally overnight, we wanted to put the tools of Internet Bar to work as best we could. So the sense of it is this. There is a new internet that's being built, except that the people who are occupying the new internet for the last decade have been speculators, criminals, and all kinds of people that have been using the anonymity of this next internet for purposes that we would not really find acceptable in a liberal democracy. Most people hear about the next internet when they think about Bitcoin and the speculation, because the virtual currency called Bitcoin is really the first application that was being built on this next internet. And now, of course, with the marketplaces being crazy the way that they are, most people, and I would say most people, meaning better than 90% of people, still are looking at the next internet as something that is something they don't want to think about, don't want to work on. And yet, at the same time, the rules of law are being built there. But who are they being built by? Well, they're being built by anybody that wants to speculate because they're figuring out new ways to use money and develop norms. And we thought, well, there's got to be something better. And so a couple of years ago, the area called non-fungible tokens began to develop. And one of the aspects of that is that it uses this term called smart contracts. And it ties smart contracts together with virtual currency. And honestly, it ties it together with online dispute resolution, because in any contract, you need a dispute resolution clause. But for sure, these disputes, when they arise, are not going to be solved in any court systems that we know in the legal systems of the world today. They're going to be resolved online in some fashion or another. So we have to figure out how that's going to happen. But what we did was we took a look at the situation in Ukraine, and we decided that there was one piece of technology that mattered more than any other, and that is the field of self-sovereign identity. And self-sovereign identity is a new way for people to develop and control their identity attributes. Now, most of us in the West or in the European countries have identities that the governments have given us, whether it's our driver's license, whether it's our certificates of graduation from schools and so forth, whether it's our bank accounts, our health information. Those are all attributes that are associated with our identity, but they belong to other people, because every place we go, we click terms of service, we click I accept to them. So we don't control any aspect of the identity attributes. Self-sovereign identity turns that on its head and essentially says, we can put you in control of your identity. And of course, with that, you get a shield. You are not quite anonymous, because the way that the blockchain works, you are putting information out there that can be seen by anybody, but it's all in bits and bytes. So it takes real sleuths to figure out who's who, because it's just difficult. We'll leave it at that. But if you are able to create an identity and use it, we thought, gee, why not reach out to the folks in Ukraine, the women and children, and see whether or not they could use these tools of self-sovereign identity to sell a service or to create a digital asset and be able to start receiving money instead of just charitable donations from wherever they could get them from. That was really the motivating factor. But I knew that once we put together a program and a plan and developed partnerships with several wonderful organizations, from electricity with Bronco Power to self-sovereign identity with Gravity.Earth to a company out of Iowa called Truck that is helping us organize the attributes. We do that. We figured we would come here, and Natalia has been hosting me, Polish lawyer, Tomasz Wardyński has been hosting me and introducing me to Polish lawyers, Ukrainian lawyers. I was lucky enough to arrive, and I ended up at the Walters Kluwer Legal Hackathon, where they had me speak and make presentations. And next thing you know, I had a lot of young people around me, which is really where the strength of my relationships are, because the young people aren't afraid of this next internet. They're just there. So, I'm all of a sudden sitting with lots of young people around me who are ready to participate and play. Now I'm here for a couple of weeks, and these ideas are beginning to develop, and so we're beginning to change some of our ideas about how to exactly approach it. we're starting to focus in on schools and educational credentials as being something that is really important for the women and children to focus in on, because you have a lot of kids who are now out of school. Some are staying in Ukraine, some are here, but that seems to be a very important first step for us.
And it's great, Jeff, to have you here. It's been a pleasure. You always bring some sort of the feeling of freshness. And it's also good, as Dr. Manuso said when we were off air, that you also show that it is possible to come here to Poland, to be here, to help on the ground. But I wanted to clarify one thing. You're using this word new internet, next internet. What do you mean by that? How does it differ from the internet we know, which you already called an all internet? Tell us, please.
Well, the internet that we all are using was really something that was developed, it goes back to the 70s and 80s. It was developed really for a community that was permissioned. It was developed for universities and researchers, and everybody knew each other. There was a way that you got onto it through university settings, and somebody had a little notebook and was writing down, who's who. And then in the early 90s, the decision was made, and it actually came out of the United States, to just open it up to everybody. But it was never built for that. There are too many holes in that internet, too many security problems that are associated with that structure. And that didn't stop the internet from growing. So in the meantime, you have to fast forward to about 2010 or so, and that's when we're not even sure if it's one person or many people uh, developed this Bitcoin idea, and it was being built on a distributed ledger technology. And the difference really is that this distributed ledger technology replaces algorithmic trust. That replaces human trust, the human trust that we all expect in interacting with each other and interacting with intermediaries, whether it's Facebook, whether it's eBay, whether it's Google, whether it's Amazon, or any of the big companies that we all know on the internet, where we go into those community settings, we click I accept to their terms of service, and we now give all of our identity attributes to them. And those become honeypots of information that the hackers come after. We do that also with hospitals. We do that with governments. Every single one of those intermediaries is a terms of service that we click I accept to, and now we are susceptible to being hacked. The distributed ledger technology that is really the foundation of the blockchain is a different type of technology that was never used in the old internet. So we're basically starting an internet again, but it's being built on a different set of tools. This distributed ledger technology in the self-sovereign identity space is being built on new norms and standards. None of us have such an identity. But what we're doing when we use that technology is we trust algorithms to essentially be our trustworthy agent for transactions. It's being built right now. A lot of bankers are moving into this space, but we wanted to use it for access to justice space. It's hard to understand all the algorithms, but once you get there, it begins to work.
Yeah. So, uh, Jeff, let's get a little bit practical. So people might start understanding how all this works and the technological level, and people start understanding Bitcoins and NFTs. But how do you envision this actually helping the Ukrainian on the ground? Can you give us some examples and ways people, like some use cases where people might be able to use internet tools out there, specifically in this conflict right now?
The primary one that we're working with is self-sovereign identity, Mac. This is a technology that has three components to it. There is the user, there's the issuer, and there's the verifier. The user is you or me. It's each one of us. We want to create an identity for ourselves. We're the user. The issuer is going to be, in a Western sense, it would be For example, your law school or your graduate school or any place in which you have a certificate of completion of a program, they're the issuer of a certificate to you. So I'm sticking with the educational setting, but you can apply this to healthcare settings. You can apply it to banking settings. You can apply it to financial settings. But it's the educational setting is the one that we have concentrated on while we're here. Now, most of the people here, if you have that issuer, it's going to be a school. And so now let's say you have a young person who has completed training in learning how to speak English, which is a real important aspect for young people to be able to say and do. How do they prove to somebody who is going to be the verifier? So if somebody wants to hire them, that's the third party in this transaction, the verifier. So the verifier is going to see a certificate that is issued by somebody that they believe in, and the user is going to then be able to acquire a position, be able to acquire a job. Just one point. The way I've described this, it sounds like somebody's actually looking at these credentials. The way the blockchain works is that it all happens in the background. And so literally jobs can be matched up with proper credentials, at least at this first phase where somebody would say, okay, I now have a group of candidates that speak English. Now I want to interview them. Then you go back to the human level of it. And that's where we're aimed. Just yesterday, I met with two teachers from Kharkiv in Ukraine who teach from K to 11. 300 of their 500-person school have remained in Kharkiv with their parents. That is in the northeast of Ukraine. It's under missile attack right now. It's very sad just listening to them talk. One of them is a music teacher. Another is the teacher in the school as well as the founder. They have 200 kids here in Warsaw, and they're struggling to find places to teach the kids. They've found 500 meters where they can put 150 kids in, and now they're looking for money and donations. So that was the problem I was presented. How can you help? How can these, how could what we're doing help out? Well, you have a music teacher and she's got programs where she's teaching kids. Well, we could literally take that program where she's teaching kids and they could be singing a song, and that song could be immediately converted into what we call a non-fungible token. And that non-fungible token could be a digital asset with which the school could sell to raise money. And it would all be done through the blockchain. Now, somebody might say, well, what does that mean? Well, all I can say is that the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is using that same tool to sell and buy military assets so that he is able to function in a war. The Russian side is doing the same thing. It's all happening outside the traditional banking systems. The NFT aspect of it just brings it down to the ground where somebody in the schools themselves could sell it. Now, as it turns out, the national holiday for Ukraine is the 24th of August. And I found that out yesterday. So we're going to be creating an ebook of documents that are coming from Kharkiv, of photographs, of stories. You can see them. It doesn't take much to think about your own kids going to school, creating the same types of things, except these are going to be available through the blockchain for anybody to buy. And so a young kid, just like a kid on the street selling lemonade and being excited about being able to bring money home to show her parents, we're going to do the same thing for those kids. And it's also possible, since they teach English to the kids, that these same teachers could be teaching English to people that are not in Ukraine. They could be teaching them to anybody anywhere. And that could be another way to generate revenue, and they could issue certificates that are counted on. So that's one application that we are coming up with, and there may be others, but we're going to stick with that one for right now.
And Barbara, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
And I'm
Yeah, we may be experiencing a little technical difficulty.
you
But let me continue. Jeff, you can continue on. I know you and Barbara have known each other for a very long time, right? Let me segue to that real quick. I'm trying to wait for her to come back on. How I don't know if you know this, but Barbara Manuso was the one who actually introduced me to you by telling me when we started instant mediations, get in contact with Jeff Aresty. At that time, you were actually in Houston. I believe now you're in Waco in North Texas. But at that time, she was the one who actually told us to connect with you. So it's a small world, but thank you so much, Barbara, for Dr. Manuso for connecting us and bringing us, together. But yes, please continue your question.
No, it's my pleasure. Um, there is so much that one person can do, and a change agent like Jeff, who brings this project to the consciousness of people, whether they don't.
Yes, we may be
I
experiencing.
think are so important.
Okay, Barbara, are you still there? Okay, we've been having some technical issues, guys.
Yep.
But okay, yes, Barbara, please continue if you're still there. So
That
this
reminds us
sometimes happens.
of the old internet, on the times when we were starting the Zoom meetings, and it was like, "Oh, are you there? Are you there? We can't hear you."
Well,
So
Barbara was talking about
Ethically, Jeff.
one of the things that has been very helpful in working with Barbara, and that she has always been able to help me think, is when you get trained by Barbara as a mediator, you really learn how to listen and listen to others. The active listening becomes real important. You pick that up as a parent in some of the trainings that are done there, but when you're operating in the world of mediation, you really have to be 100% present with the people that you're working with, and then you have to realize you can't do it yourself. I'm here, and I am fortunate enough to be meeting with attorneys, with legal technology hackers, with youth, and so forth. And the question really is, how do I bring them all together so that they can talk with each other and we can develop a solution that they feel is their own? Uh, I may have an idea of what the solution might be, but I'm really just bringing tools, and I'm talking with people to see how they can make the solution come together. We have attorneys from all over the world who want to help, and yet, unless they're actually going to be here, they need ways in which they can make a contribution that is going to be meaningful to them, but actually impact people on the ground here. And we are really as we're dealing with both an old internet and a new internet that's just coming into being, we're also dealing with existing legal systems that are not designed for a global space like the internet. And what you're dealing with here in the identity space is that in the old internet, each one of us has whatever number of identities that we make. So every username and password is an identity. That creates a massive problem, since we can all have any number of identities on the internet. Just think of the pre-internet days altogether. You had one identity. If you went around and tried to change your identity, you were in front of a judge explaining the reasons why. That's where all the cons and the frauds began to happen. Now, this internet that we work with, we just have any number of identities and nobody takes it for granted. Well, that's where the hackers win, because we all start trusting intermediaries to protect those any number of identities that we have, as we just want to use the system. So
And let
just think
me
about that.
interrupt real quick. I'm sorry, Jeff. Barbara's back for the few minutes we still have her. Please, Barbara, continue.
Jeff, I just want to thank you. You are an agent of change, and I really think that on on your website, internetbar.org, there's an opportunity for anybody who's listening and who wants to be involved, whether they have time, talent, or treasure to provide for you. Be specific on your website. Tell people what your exact needs are, and how can we all support the work that you're doing as a titan of mediation. Thank you, Jeff Aresty. It's been wonderful. And thank you on behalf of all of us who don't have your courage to be where you are and to do what you're doing. We all thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Go ahead,
Thank you so
Jeff. Last words.
Thank you. Just to answer Barbara's question, internetbar.org/donate or internetbar.org/membership are the two places that you can go onto the website. And if you become a member of Internet Bar, you'll have direct access to me, and I will talk with you and find out what it is that you want to do, and we'll get you actively involved. And we need all the help we can get, so feel motivated to donate as well. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jeff.